Welcome to this webinar on the 5 lessons I learned from business constellations. And when I was preparing this webinar, I thought, well, maybe I should have done 10 lessons or 20 because I've learned so many things, but I've made a choice and chosen 5 lessons. But this webinar is also about what are business constellations, how do they work? Because when people signed up, they could also fill in a form, and I found out that many people have no experience with constellations, and that's good or it's good that they are here at the webinar because I really like to spread the word about constellations, spread the work, because well, I'm very excited about it and more intuitive business methods. So well, let's get started. I'll change between my presentation and viewing or showing my live face and on the camera, so that I like that myself in webinar, so you know that there's a real person talking to you. So this is me. I'll introduce myself later on, and if you have questions, I'll have a look at the chat. Then you'll see my eyes moving to the right or left for you maybe. So Antonio says, if you're not talking, we believe this is off. Okay, yeah, so I'll just keep on talking. So if you have questions, put them in the chat. There is a little delay in the chat, so I'm not going to answer it right away, but I will do it on the fly. Okay, let's get started. I'll go to the presentation. Yeah, a little bit about myself. My name is Martijn Meijma. I'm based in Deventer, in the east of the Netherlands. And I'm 46 years old. I'm married and have 2 beautiful daughters, 15 and 13. So yeah, I'm a happy man. I studied business administration at the University of Groningen, which has been about, it was 1988, I think, 1989 I started. So that's a long time ago. And then I worked for IBM and for Syntense, which is a Dutch consultancy firm. And that's also where I started my international adventure, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And since 2007, I have my own consultancy and coaching and training business. And my specialty is combining business methods and business knowledge with intuition and more spiritual insights. And I'm a really practical man, so I always like to see what can it do for the business and how can we use it and how can we make it practical. And what I do is I do coaching of managers, of business owners. I do consultancy and training workshops, and all about using intuition and intuitive methods in business. So today I'll talk about the business constellations, which is just a small part. No, it's a big part of what I'm doing, but it's just one of the things I'm doing. And my mission, I think it's good to share that with you, because what I really would like is aligning businesses with the needs of people and the planet, and making profit as a result and not profit as a goal. And that not the business is the thing we're looking at, but it's the people and the planet we're looking at. And that's the main focus. And using intuition and intuitive methods have taught me how to align those businesses with the needs of the people and the planet, and so that you can work from a different level of consciousness. And that's what I would like to do in the world. And I started in the Netherlands, and well, since the beginning of this year, actually the end of last year, I've started a lot to do this international. My international adventure, I want to share a little bit about it because I'm quite excited that there are like almost 60 people have signed up for this webinar from South Africa to the United States, from Bulgaria, Romania to Spain, Germany, Poland. So I'm so excited. It's really cool. And it started actually in 1988 when I went to high school in Fort Worth, Texas. And I stayed there with the host family. I went with AFS, the American Field Service, and I had a great year. I was really part of the culture. I was an American for a year, and there was no internet, there was no messaging, no Skype. So I wrote letters to my parents, but when I called them for the first time at Christmas, I couldn't speak Dutch anymore. It was really crazy. So I really was American. Then in 1995, I started working with IBM. And with IBM, I went abroad. I went to European countries and I did some consulting there, based, related to the business, IBM business. So I love traveling. My wife and I have traveled a lot with the children, without the children. And then a long time, I didn't do a lot of the international business in my work. But this January, I started training young professionals from all over Europe. And from that, I got invited to do a workshop in Bulgaria on April 1st. And I also got connected to the people of Seoul, Bulgaria. And I think they're online as well. So thank you so very much for giving me this opportunity. I was there in May. It was so wonderful to be there. And I met a lot of people there. And now in November, thanks to Agnes and Pierre and other people, I'm going to do a training for Seoul friends about how to facilitate business constellations. So I'm really excited. I wanted to share that with you. But you're here for the business constellations. So I'm going to explain a little bit about that. What are constellations? Business constellations, family constellations, whatever kind of constellations. There are different ways of explaining them. And I have to say that actually the only way to know what business constellations are is to experience them. So find a way to experience business constellations. But I'll explain a little bit. Business constellations start with a systemic view. It's a view of life, that things are part of a bigger system. Like here you have me, and whenever you're born, you're already part of the first system, and that's the family. Even your own body is a system consisting of different parts. But the first relationship, human relationship, is your family, with a mom and a dad and maybe some sisters and other siblings. But then you're part of that system. And what happens if you, a system is more than the sum of the parts. There is like an energy, there is like a hidden set of rules guiding and influencing the system. And what you find in your family is that there's much more influences. And they say that goes 7 generations back, that the influences, things that happened back then with your great-great-great-grandfather or mother, they can still influence you. They even found it in DNA, but also in the energy. And people working with family constellations found out that like a trauma or something in the war happened can influence you right today without you knowing it. Because there's a whole set of rules, of forces. They are subconsciously working in the system, and you can feel them, you can sense them, and sometimes things are not working well. And by using constellations, you can look into this. So you're not going to look into the things that you see and that you can explain and that you rationally can find out, but you're going to look into the bigger system forces. So this is, when you were born, this is already the system you're in. And then when you go out in life, you go to school, and you take the system, your family system, and go into a different system with all your students, and you're in school. And then later on, you start working, and it's actually the same. You meet other people, and that's the other circle. It's a different system with a different set of rules and with different patterns, with different forces working in that system. And well, maybe you know, and there are so many systems you're part of. So if you're at work, you know I have to behave a little bit differently than when I'm with friends or with my soccer team or whatever. So you know that different systems have different rules or guidelines, but they're not really explicit. They're implicit. So that's what constellations look at. They look at, okay, how do these forces influence the way I work or the way we work together? And if you look at business constellations, okay, how do these forces influence the things that are happening in this company? And so you can go everywhere, and you always take your own system with you, and you become part of different systems. So this is actually a methodology developed by Bert Hellinger in Germany. This is Bert Hellinger, a picture of him. And it was not something he was thinking. He was like really putting it together. It emerged from experience by observing what is. That's what Bert Hellinger does all the time. He says, what is it that I see? And not what I think, but what is it that I sense, that I observe? And how does this, how do I find the rules that are guiding this? And so that's the way he found timeless truths that underpin human relationship systems. So he was not making them up. He was not thinking about them, but they emerged to him, and he wrote that down in various books. There are a lot in German because he's German. There are some in English. So I would recommend reading one of his books because he has this very special way of looking at people and at businesses and at systems. And they call this the phenomenological, very difficult word, approach. So it's investigation of truth through experience. And that's the whole thing about constellations. It's not about a method or like a model, and that by using that model or method, like step 1, step 2, step 3, you get to a result. No, you start, it's like a journey. You start and you don't know where to go, where you will end up. And that's what I like about it. But it's also what is kind of scary about it, because if you're like a consultant or a coach or a manager and you want to do an intervention or use a method, then this is a very, well, scary method, because you don't know what you will get, and you need to be open to everything that might happen. So well, that's what I like about it, but I know that's also why people find it difficult to work with it. If there are questions, I'll look into the chat every now and then. And then I can also explain constellations just about the process. What's happening with the constellation? Well, the first thing we do is an interview. And an interview is not like a coach session. It's not like a consultancy session. It is getting the facts. I need to know what are the facts that we're looking at. What is the problem? What are the relationships between these people, or between these departments, or between you and the customer? Who is involved, or what kind of elements are involved? Because in constellations, you can, we'll see, you put representatives or stand-ins for the different elements of the question. And it can be people, but it could also be the market, or your product, or an ID, or the spark that ignited this company. So in the interview, you want to find out, okay, what is the real question, and what elements are we looking at? What is involved, and who is involved? And the good thing is that with the constellation, if you miss 1 or 2 elements, it's no problem, because it will show up in the constellation. I've done constellations which started only with the person that has a question. So then you're choosing the elements. So from the interview and from talking to this person, you get a sense, and that's also with constellations, you're not really thinking, but you're sensing. You're finding out, okay, because sometimes one of the elements is something that the person doesn't say, because by what is not said is sometimes more important than what is said. So choosing the elements is something between you and the client, or the one who asks the question. And they can be everything, like I said. They can be people, they can be organizations, they can be countries, they can be the past, the future. We've done that in Bulgaria. So it asks also a lot of creativity and a lot of working. It's really a craft. And yeah, that's what I also like about it. It's not like, okay, I need to know the 5 ways to do this, and then I can do all the constellations. And then you're also going to you choose the elements, and you find people to represent the elements. And here you see a picture of 3 people standing, and 2 people are representative of, I don't know what this was about, and one is representing himself. And then he places those people in the room, and he relates himself to these people, to these elements. And that's what I like about constellations, is that by doing this, you don't only use your brain, your right side of the brain, or your left side, the left side of the brain, but you also use the right side, and you use your whole body. So it becomes embodied learning, and that's much faster learning and much more sustainable. So if something happens in the constellation and you get insights, you don't get insights that will go away, but they will stay with you, and you also find the energy and the power to do something with it. And then what we do is just we observe what is shown in this constellation. So we're gonna be observing what is happening here, who's doing what, who is related to who is feeling well, who's not feeling well, what is it, do they want to move, and if they move, what is happening, what is it shown by the movements. And this asks for the facilitator of experience. This asks for experience and knowing what you're doing, and a lot of intuition. And then you follow the flow of the field. So then the facilitator will ask, okay, well, does somebody wants to move? Where do you want to go? And by watching this, the one with the question, the client gets a lot of information. No, we'll do that in a minute. You do it for yourself. So, but this is how it works. And then, yeah, we move into creating a new equilibrium, a new balance, a new picture. Actually, it's like you map everything that's in your mind or that's in the question. You map it and you make a new map, and then you finish it up so that you can start with the new map in your mind and in your body. So that's what constellations are. And like I said, it's very difficult to understand it and how it works. And they're doing research, but they can't find out why it's working and how it's working. Because the thing is that you can put complete strangers as a representative for, let's say, your father or your mother in family constellations, and they will behave just like your father. They will have the same accent. They will have the same tics. They will have the same annoying habits. And it's the same with, I once was a stand-in for a department, and I just kept on laughing. And then the client says, yeah, they are always having fun in that department. So I don't know how it happens, but that's what's happening. That's what's happening, and that's what makes it also kind of magic. But again, it gives you so much insight in what is needed for your business. So where can you use constellations for? There are many applications. So there are many areas in which you can use them. You can use them for family constellations, which are like personal problems, even eating disorders or addictions, or, well, things that happen in your personal life. You have organization constellations, and I'll put some of the word marketing constellations, strategy constellations, career constellations, team constellations, so things that are happening in teams. You can, like, family constellations are more therapeutical, but organization constellations can really be used as a management method. So you can do a constellation, look at what's happening, and then you can discuss it. Okay, what if we create a new department, or what if we do this takeover? What will happen? Or what if we find a new director for this department? And then you can change it in the constellation and see what's happening. But there are also illness constellations and relationship constellations. So the last 10, 20 years, there's a lot of new fields where they start using constellations. But there are also many types of constellations. There is the regular workshop constellation, where you have a group of people, somebody has a question, and the people are used to be the stand-ins, the representatives for the different elements. But you have a tabletop constellation that you can see on the picture. But you also have constellation with floor markers. Then you put markers on the floor. We will be using that. But you can even do a constellation in somebody's head by using a visualization. Or you can use drawing. You see that on the picture as well. They first did a drawing of all the elements and how far are they away from each other, and then they take two of the elements and put it in a tabletop constellation. So these are two students in one of my training courses. And there are many ways of facilitating constellations. There are the more directive ways. So they say, okay, you need to move here, you need to say this, and then you need to move there and to say that. And that's the well, can I say that? Yeah, it's the old way of doing it. That's also how Bert Hellinger started. And then you have the fixed interventions. Like if you see that this is missing, then you let them say this, or you let them bow, or you let them let the people do that. But now more and more, it starts to be more intuitive. Silence is used more often, and it's a new way of facilitating. It's more following the flow than being a directive facilitator. And they're also like fixed format. Maybe they should be somewhere else, but it's like a format you can use. Like there are like 3 elements, and they're always the same. So that's easier to start with. So it's a broad area where you can use constellations. Evgeny says, what about doing forecasts and getting information from the future and hidden information for the purpose of the market intelligence? Yeah, that's a good question. Because you can do constellations by, okay, how can I make this product become successful? And will the market buy this product or not? But you need to be aware that it's always a, a snapshot of this moment. It's not like a prediction. It's more like at this moment, you can find out what is needed to get a flow of energy, or to get the flow working for this product. And you can find out, okay, what is the energy of the customers? What are they looking for? What are they sensitive to? And what marketing methods can I use? But if you do this a year later, it will change. It will be different. Yeah, so I've been working with quite some like constellations that are, well, not trying to predict, but that people want to know, okay, so how is this field working, and how can I introduce my product, or how can I find new markets? And it works quite well, but it's not a predictive tool. It's not like you're going to look into the future. It's more that you're at that moment, you will get a picture or a movie of the situation, and you will look at the deeper lying forces that are active in the field. Thank you for the question. Yeah. So now we're here for the lessons, and there are 3. The first lesson is that there are 3 leading forces, and I like this lesson because even without using constellations, I keep them in mind if I look at people, if I look at organizations, if I talk to managers, and they really help me look at things from a different perspective. And the first is the force of place. And in the constellation, what they found out, and it's also like the emerging knowledge is this, because they found out that everything has a good place. There's a good place for everything. And by placing like those 2 people out of the system while they are part of the system will react. And people in the system will react. They will behave badly, or there will be resistance, or there will be some symptoms in the system. Like in an organization, there will be these rumors, or there will be people complaining, but instead of saying, okay, these people are bad and how can we teach them not to complain, you can see it as a signal. They're signaling that there's something wrong in the system. There's some of these forces are not taken care of. So the first force is that there is a good place for everyone, and that means, for example, that if there is a manager, and well, sometimes somebody says, oh, it's not a good manager, and that can be, and then you can fire that manager, but you have to do that properly. You have to say, okay, you're part of our system, and now your place is outside this company, but he will be part of the system forever because he is part of the history. And sometimes they say, well, it was a very bad manager and he did bad things, so we put him in the black book and we never talk about him anymore. And that's when the problems start, because then he doesn't have a place. And then other people, without knowing it, and that's the thing, they don't know what they're doing. So you cannot ask them, what is the signal you're giving, or what is the problem in the system? They'll just say, well, we don't agree, and this new manager, we hate him, or whatever. But actually they're saying, and that's what you see in constellations, is that they say, okay, what's up? We leave somebody out. And it might happen that you will get a pattern, so that this seat he is leaving, like this, it will be a problem seat. They call this the ejector seat. So every time a new manager is in that place, he will get problems and he will get fired, or he will just resign himself. And if that happens like 2-3 times, you can be sure that there is a problem with the force of place. The second force is the time or order. In systems, there's always somebody first, somebody who came first, somebody who was there first. Like in a family, there's the older sister or brother, and there's a younger one. There is in organizations, there are people that were there earlier and the people that came later. And it's different from families. In organizations, there are different orders. Because there's like the order of age, so people can be older, so they were first on Earth, and others are later. But it could be that others are longer in the organization, so they were first in the organization, and the others were later. And then you also have to not time, but the order, like hierarchy. I'm the boss, and you are my employee, and I don't have to be a boss like I tell you what to do, but it's a different. I have a different role in the organization. And so it's always good to see what order or what is leading here. And that you respect the order, so that somebody who is young and is going to be the boss can respect the older people and the people that have been there longer. And if that's not acknowledged, then there will be a problem. There will be symptoms. And I will say symptoms or problems are actually a solution of the system. The system finds a solution to rebalance, or to show that there's something going wrong with one of these forces. So if you look at problems as being solutions of the system, so like being symptoms instead of the real problem, then you get a lot farther in finding the real cause of problems. Antonio says, order is related to asymmetry and to power in the group. Yeah, that's right. Because there's also the order of who has the most influence. And it can be somebody else than who's the boss. And yes, there's asymmetry. I've once coached a manager and his employee, and he said, well, I'm not really the manager, the leader. I'm like a sort of employee. I have a little bit more responsibilities. And you saw that the employee didn't like that. He said, okay, I just want you to be the boss, because it makes it safe to be here, to know, okay, you're the boss and I'm an employee. And it's the same in families. But like, it's good to know that your parents are the parents and you are the child, and you don't have to be the parent. So order is also giving you safety. And then the last force is the force of exchange. So that's a system is exchanging with other systems, and you give and you receive. And that needs to be in balance. But also within the system. If I'm part of a system, I give to the system and I receive. And that needs to be in balance. And it's not like a balance you can weigh on a scale, but it's like more like a sensing of the balance. And it's sometimes money is an easy way to balance it, but money is not the thing that works all the time. Because if you have a problem with money, it's never about the money. It's about something else that's not receiving and giving. So it's about compliments. It's about love. It's about energy. It's about inspiration. So remember that if there's something wrong with receiving and giving, it doesn't work to give more money or to ask for less money. It's always something else. Lesson 2, and that's an important lesson too, is that you always need to focus on the customers and their customers. I've seen it so often in constellations, is that as soon as you bring in a representative for the customer and for the customer of the customer, things start flowing and things become clear. And you can also check if, like, a decision you want to make with your company, if it's affecting the customers. What is happening to the customers? Because the customers keep the company alive. Without a customer, and customer can be a paying customer, or it can be like the user of your service. So it doesn't have to be like a commercial company, but it's the people you do the work for, the people that benefit for your work, the people that appreciate the value you add. So you also need to ask you, what value am I adding? What am I providing to these people, and to their people, to their customers? And it's also good to know that you need to find out what's happening with my product or service. Once I had this guy, he made like machines, or maybe even the metal for machines. But what I found out, is that later on these machines were used for candy, and candy, is not very good for children. So there is something happening with your product that is not really helping the world a lot, or well, it's more that it's doing something with children, and you need to take that into mind when you produce your products, your machines. Is that there will be some you're also giving sugar and stuff to children. And that's okay, but if you deny that, or if you say, okay, well, my responsibility ends when I ship this product to my customer, that's not the truth. And it's even worse if you make like war materials or stuff like that. And also with your customers, giving and taking or receiving should be balanced. So you should ask a fair price. And the thing we learn in our business books is that we need to maximize our profit. Well, we don't need to maximize our profit. That's a lie, because then you need to ask more money, and if you ask too much, then there will be an imbalance, and people will start complaining. And it's also the other way around. If you don't ask enough money, there will be symptoms as well, and they can be very different symptoms, but it can also be that people start complaining. So that's lesson 2, that customers and their customers is very important. And what I would like you to do is do a little exercise. And that's where you need the 3 pieces of paper for. And I'll show myself again, because that makes a little. Here we go. Okay. So what I would like you to do is take 3 pieces of paper. And on the first piece, you write your name, or you write I or me, or so you write on the first piece of paper, you write your name. And I assume that everybody is working for a company or has a customer. And it can be a customer within a company, or it can be a customer outside the company, or it can be a non-paying customer or client. So right on the second piece of paper, you write client or customer or whatever name you would like to give it. And you can also decide to make it a potential customer. So then it becomes more like a marketing constellation. Or you say, no, this is a specific customer I have in mind. Or you can say it's just general customers of my company. So just do what you like. So first piece of paper has your name on it. The second one has customer on it, or potential customer. And the third one has the customer of the customer. Or like if you work with clients, it's like the people involved with your client. Like if you're a coach or a therapist, then you have the family members of the customer, or the partners of the client. But you can also, like, to make it easy, it's customer and customer of customer, because in the constellation, this will, and that's what I like about it, because these words don't really matter, because it's the energy that's below it. And If the customer of your customer is the family, then it will turn out to be the family. And what I would like you to do is, in your room where you are, find a place for your for the piece of paper with your name on it. And that's the first force, the first of force of place. So there's a good place, and you can just think of a place, I want to do it here, but you can also sense it. So then you walk around your room and feel, sense for what is the right place for me. And I realized there's no real question, because most of the time you need a question to do a constellation. And this is just like exploring how this works. So it's just exploring how you relate to the customer and the customer of the customer, to find out that the force, that second lesson, how that works for you. So put down the piece of paper that has your name on it. And then you take the second piece of paper with customer on it, or client, or whatever your name you wrote on it. And you also hold that and you walk around and you feel, sense, where does this belong? What is the right place? Right, nothing right and wrong, but what is the place this should be? And you put it down there. And what I forgot to tell you, you can put a little markers on the piece of paper that just know which way they are looking, like they are real persons. But maybe you can just remember that, okay, this one is facing this way and this one is facing the other way. And you do the same with the last piece of paper. So the last piece of paper, sometimes you put it next to your belly, and then you feel, okay, this is where I want it. But maybe you see it right away. That also can happen. That you see, okay, this is where it belongs. Or you walk around. And also, if you cannot find the place, it's also information. That's one of the last lessons. There's no good and bad. It's just information. So that's also good with constellations and with intuition in general, is to know that everything is information. It's not, you don't have to judge it. And then what you do is you stand on your own piece of paper, your own floor marker with your name on it. And you face the direction that you faced when you put it down, or that you wanted it to face. And then what you do is you sense, you start sensing. You can also think, but if you also focus on what's your body telling you. If you're on that piece of paper, is your body warm or cold? Do you feel tense or relaxed? Does your body want to move, or is it standing still, or if it fixed to the floor? And you can also sense the emotions. What emotions do you feel when you're here? And what thoughts are there? Mental sensing, actually. And it's just observing. So you don't have to go with the thoughts and, well, start thinking. It's just, okay, hey, it's quite a lot of thoughts, or maybe it's quite empty. Or I have to think of this person. So it's just sensing. And then there's something like energy. Maybe you have something with the word energy, or with, it's like a more spiritual dimension. Okay, so how do I feel, sense anything else than the other things? And how am I related to the other pieces of paper? And you can imagine that there are two people standing there. And how do I relate to them? Am I related? Do I feel connected? Do I feel connected the same way with the customer as with the customer of the customer? Can I see them both? Can I feel them? Do I? And what do they do to me? Do I get excited, or do I get a little scared or happy? So what happens in the interaction with the other two elements? And keep on breathing. Sometimes you hold your breath if it gets a little exciting. So keep on breathing. It's all information. And I can tell you, I've done a lot of the constellations, and sometimes I found out things I didn't want to find out. I did, but first I thought, wow, no, I don't want to see this. So sometimes it's information you really don't want to see, but the thing is, you want to see it, otherwise it wouldn't be there. And what you do then is you step off your own piece of paper, and sometimes it's good to really step off it and make a little turn to get out of the energy, to get away from it. And then you step on the piece of paper of the customer. And there you also sense, okay, how is the customer feeling here? Physically, emotionally, mentally, and energetically, spiritually. And if you have a hard time sensing, maybe you can find a difference. What is the difference between where you were on your own piece of paper and now? Is there a difference? Because in the difference, sometimes it's, oh yeah, I feel a little bit lighter or heavier, or maybe I feel a little bit more energetic here, or just less energetic. And maybe it's very subtle. Maybe it's just, okay, yeah, I feel a little bit more relaxed here, but it's not much. And also check how you relate to the other elements. So to yourself, actually, and to your customer now. So the customer of the customer is now your customer. And it's interesting to see where your focus is. Is your focus on you, the supplier, or is it focused on your customer? And that's information. It's interesting information for you to know as the supplier. Yeah, this makes it a little bit difficult that you're on different spots. But now you're your customer. So where is your focus? And how do you feel towards the piece of paper with your name on it? And you might also want to know if do you want to move? If you stand on this piece of paper, do you want to make a move? And then it's okay to make that move. Because if you want to be closer or farther away, or just make the move and put the piece of paper in the new spot. And if you don't want to move, then don't move. I'm gonna check a little bit chats. Okay. And then you step off this piece of paper and really step out of it to tell you, okay, now I'm myself again. Maybe turn a little bit, shake. And then you step on the customer of the customer, the piece of paper. And you check out, how's this position? How's this place? So we're working with the force of place, but also with the force of order. Is this the right order? Or should you be somewhere else? And not by thinking, but by sensing. Do I sense that I need to be somewhere else? Or is this the right spot? Well, that's not really order, it's also place. But the order could be that, do you feel that the other one is supplying something to you? And that's also about receiving and giving. Who is giving something to whom? So that is also something you can sense. Do I receive something from my supplier and from the supplier of my supplier, which is the piece of paper with you on it, with your name on it? So there are a lot of ways of sensing. So please, for yourself, if this is the first time, just sense on this piece of paper, how are you feeling mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually? How do you relate to the other elements? Do you feel connected? Do you feel more connected than that you felt on the other piece of paper? And is there a movement you want to make? So those are the questions you can ask yourself. And know that you can do this exercise later on. You will get a recording of this webinar, so you can do the exercise whenever you want to. You just stop the recording and take the time you need. And everything is information. So you might want to write down something. Maybe you already have some insights. And what I want you to do is also step off this piece of paper and return to your own spot, your own piece of paper. And from that point of view and from that place, you digest the information you just have, you've seen, and you find out, okay, from looking from this perspective, what does it tell me? and what does it do to me if I see that the customer wants to move away or move closer or doesn't want to move at all, or so just uh, yeah, digest the information from your own place so that you know, okay, and maybe you want to make a last move with your own piece of paper, from with yourself. You say, okay, if I move a little bit over here, then it feels a lot better for me. And I know, but that's also because we don't have much time left. I might rush it a little bit. So if you want to do this, you can also take more time, because sometimes by just being quiet and standing, you get a lot more information. So taking time and using silence is something in constellations you can use a lot, and it will give you a lot of information. Because what will happen is that you will tap into some deeper layer with information if you take a little bit more time. And that's what also I like about constellations. You can use them at different levels. You can use them real quickly, and they will give you quick information that's on the surface. But you can also use them to get real deep information easily, actually, because, well, we've been working now for 7 or 10 minutes. And I guess that you have quite some information already. So you might want to share this information in the chat. You don't have to, but if you want to share it, please share it in the chat so other people can find out the reactions of other people, so that you can learn from each other. And I will also give some comments then. And what you do to finish it, that's also very important, is that you step out of it and really, step out of the energy and turn around a little bit and shake so that you are really yourself again. That's also why it's good to end on your own piece of paper. And then what you also need to do is, dismiss these pieces of paper. Normally in a constellation with people, you dismiss the person, you say, okay, thank you, and you're yourself again. And you can do the same with the pieces of paper. Your piece of paper, and you just shake it a little bit and put them back. But if you want to use it later on, just leave them there. But it's important to do this finishing, otherwise this energy will keep chasing you. So, and if you have questions about it tomorrow or tonight, just send me an email, because I really want to do good follow up on this. If you really have questions, like something happened that you're really uncertain of, just let me know. And I will continue with the presentation. So that was the exercise, me, customer, customer, moving around. Then we have lesson, that's the Dutch word, lesson 3. There are parallel processes in organizations or in systems. And by parallel processes, I mean that there are like patterns or things repeating. So first you have the pattern or the problem of a customer. Like if you have the police, the customers are like the society. And there's the problem you're solving is the safety and security in society. So that's a pattern. It's a pattern of people being safe or not safe, people attacking each other. The thing is, that will also happen between you and the customer. So this same pattern will repeat. So I know that also for policemen, there's this violence and there is this insecurity if they start working with the people on the street. I don't know what happens if you see a policeman, but there's a kind of, things like, whoa, am I still safe? I'm safe because they protect me, but also, did I do something wrong? There's also kind of unsafety. So safety, unsafety is an issue. And it's interesting to do that for your own company, or if you're a consultant, to check that with your clients. What is the real problem they are solving for their customers? And does the same issue arise in the processes between the company and their customers? And within the company. For example, I know that inside the police organization, there's a lot of insecurity. There's a lot of people are scared. There's a lot of unsafety. So it's repeating itself. And it's good to know that. It's also good to know that that's normal, because what's happening, if, and we will continue that, because it's also between the people in the company. So people make it unsafe for each other, and they even within the families of the employees. So it's also, what is happening is that people bring their own system, and they are attracted to other systems, like the organization system that has this pattern of insecurity, because they relate to that pattern from their own past, until you look in your own family system and you transform this pattern, and you will not find this pattern anymore. And it's the same. What did I want to say? It's the same with, if you start working for a company, you really get attracted to that pattern. And I've just one, but there are more patterns in an organization, and you attract certain customers with certain patterns. So it's always good to look at this problem from different levels. And that's a lesson I really learned in organization constellation, business constellations, is that you see these patterns happening. And then, well, yeah, what they say sometimes is that every constellation finally, in the end, is always a family constellation. You don't have to go there, but it's, if you really want to fix the problem, you have to look at the families, and then you can change it. Okay. Lesson 4. The initial purpose, the spark, the raison d'être. I know there are some French people, I always like this word, the raison d'être, the reason of being, the purpose. What was the initial spark that ignited the organization? And it's all, if you're self-employed, it's also good to know, why was it that you started a company, started a business? But also with multinationals, there's always somebody who started this company who said, okay, I have an idea, I really want to do something in this world, and it's never I want to make money, because I've never found any entrepreneur who says, okay, I want to make money, that's why I do this. No, there's always a reason behind that, and making money is a result of that. And it's good to respect this spark, this purpose, this initial purpose, and to, especially if companies grow old, like 100 or 200 years, we might have lost this initial purpose, and we might, because the people are not there anymore that founded the company. And it's good to remind all the people actually in the organization that this was the reason why this organization was founded, and because it will guide everything, consciously or subconsciously. And if you forget that, and you go, I know for some banks, for example, there's this Dutch bank. Yeah, they were there for the farmers. And then later on, when every big bank was starting to go abroad and do all of these kind of weird financial products, they thought we have to do that too. And that's when they really start having problems, because they were too far away from the initial purpose of the bank, of the founders. And it's always good to realize that. And if you're working with companies, it's good to find that again. Why was this company founded? And are we still loyal to that purpose? And the thing is, with organization systems is different than family systems. Organization systems can come to an end. They can be ended. Sometimes the initial purpose is fulfilled. I know this Dutch company, they wanted to show Dutch people that there are many very nice products in developing countries, and they bought them in those countries, and they sold them in Holland, just to tell the people, look, they're a developing country, but they have very nice products, and we can do the business with them. And well, actually, we know that now. So they have reached their goal. They have reached their purpose. It's fulfilled. So they have problems now. Those shops, they don't go well anymore. So you can either decide to create a new purpose, but you really need to find a new good purpose. And sometimes you might even decide to end the company and start a new company with a new purpose. And yeah, people don't want to think about that. They want to say, okay, a company has to be, it needs to be there forever. But it doesn't have to be there forever. And then the last, it's there's no good and no bad. And I always become a little bit more quiet, and I like this picture as well. And this is a very important one. I put it as last, but it's for me, it's almost the most important one I've learned from constellation, but also facilitating constellation, is by acknowledging what is, just acknowledging, observing, and not wanting to change it. No judgment. And by doing that, you connect with the deeper layers. You let go of your ego. You stop wanting something. You stop want to change things. You stop thinking, this is good, this is bad, I need to change this. No, you're just curious. You're exploring, experimenting. And there is no good, no bad. Sometimes things, oh, this looks so good. And then later on it seems to be bad. And then you think, oh, this is very bad. And later on it turns out to be good. So if you can have this stance, actually, this way of looking at organizations, at people, at life, maybe even, it really helps you to to get to the real cause of problems, and to the deeper layer guiding organizations. And then you can have real impact if you want to change something, because you don't want to change it, but it will change on the way by you just being there and doing the right things. And that's always a tension that I feel as well, because sometimes you want to change something, but not by changing it, but by setting the steps that your intuition tells you. And by setting the steps, things change, but not because you want it, but because it just happens. So this is a very important one. And I think if you use these lessons in your company or in your work as a consultant or a coach or whatever, then you will already change something. You will already move to a new way of doing business. And I would really love that if people integrate this into their work. So again, the 5 lessons. There are 3 leading forces in systems: place, time or order, and exchange. Customers and their customers are important for a company. Patterns keep repeating at different levels. Respect the initial purpose, and there's no good, there's no bad. And then I become a little bit quiet, because that's also what intuition is about, and what constellations are about for me. It's also being quiet and start sensing that instead of thinking. So I really hope that, well, when you start doing business tomorrow or working, that you keep this in mind, and that you might look at things differently, that you might see problems as a solution, that you might think of the forces, that you might say, okay, this might look bad, but maybe it's good. Let's just explore it. Let me see. Okay, the time is almost up, or actually it's up. If you want to learn more, this is a good book, Systemic Coaching and Constellations. I took the pictures from that book, I have to say. It's one of the few English books that I really like. And it's not because I don't like the books, but it's because there are not many books in English. If you search Bert Hellinger Constellations on YouTube, you will find a lot of information. And really follow a constellation workshop. Experiencing is the best learning. So I really would recommend that. And then, what am I going to do? Because I also want to share with you some of my plans, ideas. Well, I've been to Sofia twice, and some of the people, I've been talking to some people, and we really want to do a workshop, organize a workshop in Sofia. There's also somebody in Cluj, I don't know how you pronounce it, in Romania, and I'm thinking of going there and also do a workshop on constellations so that you can really experience it. And a very concrete thing is that I have planned a training in Paris, France, on the 30th of November, and I'll get you the link right away, because then you can see, Paris, training Paris. And you can find all the information there. If you click on more information, you will find it. It's a 5-day workshop in 2 parts. The first part is the 30th of November and the 1st and 2nd of December of this year, and then the 23rd and 24th of March next year. I'm really excited. So really thank you, Agnes and Pierre and other people that, that made this possible. And I really love this work, and I love to spread this work. So if you have ideas, if you say, okay, why can't you come to my country, or can we do a webinar where we can tell more people about this? I'm really into this. So contact me if you have any ideas. My contacts are here. Let's stay connected. Martijn at intuitioninbusiness.com, www.intuitioninbusiness.com, or my Facebook, Intuition in Business. And then we can stay in touch. I really would like that. So if you're interested in Sofia or in Cluj in Romania, contact me, let me know. And I have some contacts there that are working on it. And I know some are I think they're online. Claudia is, Ilinka, and other people are. So I also will look at a little bit at the chats. Let me stop with it. So Evgeny says, I felt much more attracted by the customers of my customers. Okay, that's interesting. So that's also good for you to know that. But the thing is, what are your customers looking at? Are they also interested that you are interested in their customers? Because then you can talk to your customers about their customers, and then you get a different conversation. I realized that I need to distance myself from my client. Yeah, sometimes that's needed. I know I had one constellation where there was this representative for my client and one for the problem of my client. And the problem of my client was just grabbing my legs and staying attached to me. And my client was just walking away. And I thought, this is not what I want. So it really gave me a lot of information. Yeah. Heidi says, thanks, Martijn. I have to run to meet with one of my customers. Yeah, that's very important. So good that you were here, Heidi, all the way from the States. Nicole says, the mini constellation gave me a better understanding of the emotions and real problems of my customers, so I know better how to make contact. Yeah, so it's also actually a marketing tool. Is use this to write your marketing text, or to know what to focus on if you're talking to a client. Just put a piece of paper with client or with maybe a prospect, and you stand on it and you feel, okay, what is needed to do business with him or her. Okay, if there are no more questions, I really would like to thank you. Thank you all. I hope to see you one day somewhere in the world. I will be doing more webinars, so I'll invite you. You are on my mailing list now. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. And I hope to see you soon. And if you have any questions or any things or uncertainties, just drop me an email, martijn@intuitioninbusiness.com. And we'll stay in touch. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.